I'm going to start quickly by going through a brief price comparison. So using the shared services between MetroCOG and RiverCOG is going to yield a lot of benefits for the towns that comprise RiverCOG. So if we were to start off with a standalone system, the initial cost would be about $13,000 for the first setup of the system and the initial implementation. And that would be a 5-user system. It would include 1,000 forms submissions per month. And when we talk about those submissions, we're talking about things like the public submitting a permit application, a FOIA request or FOIL request, things like that, where the towns are or the citizens are interacting with the system. It would also include 1,000 read-only views per month for things like if you wanted to put your meeting minutes up, if you're digitizing documents and you want to share those. Additional storage could also be purchased at $300 a year for each 100 gigabytes. And each full user does include 100 gigs of storage. So on the current MetroCOG system, I think we're using less than a few hundred gigs. So for typical documents that are scanned, you can store 20 to 30,000 documents per gigabyte. So it's really a lot of space. If you're sharing documents, anything really other than like videos, if you've got like drone footage, those are large files. But typically for the documents, it's a very small document size, and you can fit a lot of documents in the include storage. The initial cost for a standalone system also would not include the time to develop any forms or processes. Those would be built on a per project basis. Taking a look at that compared to the shared services with MetroCOG, each full user is $950 per user per year. So each town would need at least one full user. Those full users do include the ability to scan documents, to build forms, and to administer those processes. And they do include 100 gigabytes of storage per full user. So that's a great, very cost-effective way to get started with the town. The participants have the ability to participate in a process. So if you have a select person that is going to be approving a contract, for example, they could be a participant in that process. A full user could initiate the process, could design it, and then the approvers could be participants in the system. And those are $120 each user per year. They do not include any additional storage on the system, so that's only included with the full users. But with the shared services, due to the tier that MetroCOG is on, they're on the highest level, it includes unlimited form submissions per month. So now there's no limit on how many citizens can interact with the towns and start processes. And it also includes unlimited read-only views. So again, as you're going through your digitization process, if you have minutes, if you've got contracts, anything that you want to scan and make available to the public, you can do so with unlimited read-only views. And those, again, are fully searchable. So we have other customers like the St. Louis Metropolitan Sewer District that have thousands and thousands of documents, ordinances, resolutions, minutes that they've scanned, and those are available publicly on their website. So it's a great value add. You can link to this latest feature repository right from your website, and the citizens can go, your constituents can go right onto your website. They can click a public document portal, and they can search those documents. The other advantage is that what's already been built on the MetroCOG system can be used as a template. So the permitting process, the contract process, all of the existing processes have already been built for MetroCOG. We can take those, modify them to the needs of each town, which is more efficient than starting from scratch and starting from square one. So a lot of advantages to going on to the MetroCOG system. Before I move on to discussing scanners, do I have any questions about the pricing?
I do have a question. So the 100 gigabytes of storage, that is sort of segregated per user. So there's distinct 100 gigabytes that only the user can access, or how does that work?
It's pooled across the account, so it's a basically one giant storage bucket. And then the
Okay.
way that we can run reports to say, okay, here's what MetroCOG is using, here's what RiverCOG is using, and then break it down further by each town or each folder. So if you think about the repository architecture, each town will have its own folder that is its root, and then we can simply run a report, an audit report that tells us how much storage is being used by each town.
And can there be permissions set for each of those folders?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, there's access. Yeah, we have it right now with Metro. The repository has like a MetroCOG overarching folder. Each town has their own folder underneath that. The users from each there's an admitter. The users from each specific municipality only have access to their folder for their town. So it's not, if you have access to the system, it doesn't mean you have access to everything. You only have access to the folders that you're provided access to.
Okay.
I would say just on the one thing on the storage piece, Sam, because you did ask. So it is 100. It's 100 gigs per user per named user that you have. But so right now we have how many full users? 25.
25.
So we have 25 full users. So each one of those full users has 100 gigs right now. So we
Correct.
have.
So you have 2.5 terabytes of storage.
Terabytes of storage right now through our system.
Gotcha.
As Zahir said, we're maybe using, I don't know, a couple gigs worth of storage.
Yeah,
so
it's not a lot.
From a Delta perspective, there's terabytes of available space.
So even if
So
we're
you're
pooled together, we're
even
not
pooled
approaching
together.
that.
We're not even. I mean, as Zahir said, I mean it's thousands of documents per gig when you're just scanning a black and white, or even like large. We've done some larger format like drawings and stuff. Even those aren't that big. The only time you would run into an issue is either if you were some sort of like data processing place that had millions and millions of documents a day, or you were putting a bunch of like 4K video up.
Right.
I mean, other than that, I don't think we're ever going to get to 2.5 terabytes. And if we add more users, that 2.5 terabytes goes to 3, goes to 3.5. So it's I don't think we're going to run into a place where space, at least not for the first number of years, where space becomes any of an issue. But we can always go back and look and see, like if there's one town hogging all the memory, then we can figure out a way to deal with that. And there is ways to go back and check that.
Okay.
Yeah, there's still auditing in the system. So we'll be able to run reports, typically on an annual basis. We do this for our other customers that have shared services, even if they're internal to a company where they need to know which divisions are using which kind of space. We're able to run those reports very easily. All right, so unless we have any other questions on the pricing, I don't see anything in the chat here. Let's go ahead and we'll go on to the scanner options. So this was another question that a lot of the towns had was, what kind of scanners can we purchase? Again, Laserfiche is hardware agnostic, for lack of a better term. We don't have any sort of proprietary locked-in hardware. These are the desktop scanners that we recommend. We've had a very good relationship with Canon. They build very good products, but you can use any industry standard scanner as long as it has a Twain driver. So if you like Fujitsu or Panasonic or Epson, any brand that you like, we've had a very good experience with the Canon scanners, and our customers have as well. So we recommend those. But we are happy to support any scanners the towns would want to purchase. These are the ones that we can spec and supply as well. So again, there's no lock-in, no commitment, but we offer these to our customers. So just quickly going through a couple of the options here. The first two options there, the C225-2 and the C230, those are going to be your desktop scanners. Those are the lightweight scanners. They're not really suitable for doing a big conversion project, but after you've digitized your documents, these are good ones for sort of day forward. Hey, I've got to scan 25 pages or 50 pages. They have 30 and 60 page feeders, and all of these scanners will scan 300 DPI, black and white, front and back with a single pass through. They're just really differences how well constructed and how many pages these systems can handle at a time. Moving up to the M260, this is probably our most popular scanner. It has a 5-year warranty. It has all metal internal construction, so you can see the price point jumps up a bit, but it's built like a tank. This is the one that I have sitting on my desktop and the one that we recommend pretty much for all of our customers. 60 page per minute, 80-page document feeder, and the price point's $11.95.
And
I'm sorry, sorry, what was that, Matt?
Are they double-sided?
All of these will scan double-sided. So they're duplex scanners. They will scan both sides of the page in a single pass.
And is this up to ledger size paper or?
The 225, 230, and M260 are all going to be up to legal size. I do not recall off the top of my head if the 6010 is ledger size. We do have ledger size options. I believe it's not listed here, but the M1060 is another option that does do ledger size. And for anyone who's not familiar with that, that is if you have a folio or you have two 8.5 by 11 pages, that are like a newsletter or something like that. Those can be scanned, but that's a ledger size document. If anyone does require ledger size scanning, just let me know. I'm happy to get you the options on that. But the 6 series, the 6000 series, 6010 and the 6030, obviously you're moving up into much larger. Those are more suited for the back file conversion. Those are 60 page per minute and 80 page per minute, and both have a 100-page document feeder. And then moving up the G2140s, the big boy, that is the beast that will do 500 pages, 140 pages per minute, and it's a 500 feeder. So that is best suited for your larger towns are going to have a lot of back file scanning to do. And again, all of these options, we can spec, supply, and we provide the warranty services for. The larger units like the G2140 do have the option of having the on-site service kit as well. So you can have the Canon techs actually come out, do the preventative maintenance, on-site service. The lower end models like the 260, the 230, and the 225, those are going to have advanced unit warranties so that if anything goes wrong with the unit, they ship you a new one and you send the broken one back in the box. Very, very easy and very efficient. Do I have any other questions about the scanning?
Yeah, does the scanner do the OCR, or is that processing done later?
That processing is done by the software. So
Okay.
that's going to be when you scan documents into Laserfiche Cloud, it takes, it's all back-ended by Amazon. So it takes anywhere from, a second to a few minutes, and your document is fully searchable.
Okay.
And you said black and white. Do these also do color, just maybe a
They
little
do.
slower?
All of them do color at the same speed. So they will all do 24-bit color. So you can do full color for photographs. You can do grayscale if you have things like newspaper or things that you want to have, might have a black and white photograph on it. And then you can do black and white. If you're scanning regular documents, we recommend that you do 300 DPI and black and white. But again, if you go up to grayscale or color, it just becomes a larger file.
Larger file. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So with that, again, I have all these options. I sent the email. I have brochures. I can share that with everyone as well. But moving on now, I believe you wanted to do a demonstration. So Mark, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to pass it over to you guys. And then Dylan also has the ability to show a customized demo of how we can actually customize the form. So I'm going to pass it over to you guys first. Let me stop my screen. Okay.
All right, thanks to hear. All right, so what I have listed here are all of the different applications and processes that we've built with AIS over the last few years. I know in our previous meeting we kind of demoed the trade permit form, but we can go through now and kind of go through a couple other processes more in depth. So the first one that we really started with was this contract management form. So I'm just going to open that up. And this was set up by Monroe, by the first selectman there, as a way to kind of document and get reminders for different contracts that were coming up. So this link is sent out to all of the department heads, and when they ever have a new contract that needs approval, they fill out this form and it sends a notification to the first selectman. It then goes through a workflow, which we will kind of demo now, and then it gets stored in the repository. And we mentioned this previously, but the thing about this is that the town really appreciates is it sets reminders when the contracts are expiring. So 30, 60, 90 days before the contract expires, it sends out an email just so everyone knows that this is coming up. If you need to renew it or cancel it so you don't avoid a fee.
Yeah, I'll just add, this part of this came about because Monroe was in a contract that auto-renewed that they were hoping to get out of, but they missed the auto-renewal cutoff date, which I think was 30 days before it's set to auto-renew. You had to provide notice of non-renewal. And they had just missed that when they went back and looked for the contract, so that the first selectman was like, we need a better way to keep track of all of these contracts that the town has. So this was kind of what we built for that, which started off relatively small and then kind of ballooned out into this larger form where, as Mark said, department heads and there was a bunch of steps that Monroe wanted to include. And the nice thing about Laserfiche is you don't have to have all of this information. It could just be something where you enter a contract in once it's executed by the first selectman after it's gone through whatever the legislative process for that town is. But Monroe wanted to get a better handle on all the way through, from initiation from the department head that's going to be actually kind of administering the contract all the way through to town council approval and then fully executed document. So it's really customizable based on how much information and how much you want to kind of track it through its process. But Mark will explain kind of how that goes.
Yeah, and all these questions came from the town, so they kind of provided a list to AIS and they built a form based on this. So, all these things are editable. And the thing with working with AIS is once they set it up, they don't just kind of leave you. So we set this up and then, the first selectman comes back and says, actually, I want this question. I want to change the workflow, and they can make the tweaks on the live version.
Very, very easily.
And
too.
does this populate a spreadsheet?
So it populates a metadata for each contract. So all these questions go into part of the metadata for the contract, and it's kind of stored. It's stored. The answers to this are stored with the contract, and the contract is scanned in and stored as well. And there's metadata on that, and the metadata is filled out as you fill out this stuff. And the second page where you have like the contract terms, the length, all that stuff. That's all stored in the metadata for that contract.
And then that's what you use to generate the notifications.
The notifications come off of that.
Okay. So I'm just going to go through some of these questions. Some of them have different dependencies on them. So if you select yes or no, more questions will pop up. So is it party agreeable to town Monroe? I'm going to select yes. Is the signatory the first selectman? Is it negotiable? I'm going to say yes. If you put no, that one doesn't have a dependency. Let's see, choice of venue. If I do yes, you see the state of Connecticut pops up. If you select no, it confirms that you've been asked to change it to state of Connecticut. So just some of these different dependencies in there. So if you have any concerns, you can mark it here and leave some notes that'll go to the first selectman and they review it. So I'll just put, a couple of notes here. And then we have some different financial terms. So I've conducted the proper due diligence. There's a link to the purchasing policy for the town. So this is stored in Laserfiche. So it just links to a document within Laserfiche. So they can update that. They updated their purchasing policy, so they just sent us the new link and AIS switched it on the back end. Responsible for a review of financial impact, and are there any fiscal impacts? I'll just select no for that, hit next. Then we have a contract status. So this is for new contracts. So you can select, I want to submit it to the first selectman. They had some that had already been executed. So to get all of those up to speed, you can just select executed and it would skip the whole workflow and just store it in the repository. So for all the contracts that have already been approved, they started with that, loaded them all in the system so that everything was in there.
Yeah, and that was someone usually in the first selectman office that had time during the day would go through and just put a couple existing contracts in as executed, just again, so they're in there, because if you put the terms in there, you then start to get the reminders, even if it hasn't gone through the whole process.
Here we have a contracting party. So this is a drop-down list. So they had
the town's vendors? Or?
Yeah,
So
all the town's
they
vendors.
started with all the vendors they had.
And then we can add new as well.
Yeah, so if you add a new one here, you select add new and you can type in, test account, and then that gets added
to the list. So the next time you go, and one of the reasons I want to do this is because they had a lot of places where, one person would be like CT, DOT, another person would be State of Connecticut Department of Transportation,
Right.
and they had like 4 or 5 different, so we kind of formalized that with this list, and then when you added it to the list, as Mark said, when you put a new one in, it would add it there, but you could also go back into the actual, like the list itself and edit that and upload it back in if you need to. So if someone went in and put state of Connecticut instead of Connecticut DECD or whatever,
Yeah.
you could go in and change that and modify it. So it's fully like editable on the back end, even once it's put in there by an administrator.
So here we have the department that has the contract and the owner email. So this owner receives email notifications throughout the process as well, you know, when it's been approved, things like that, when the reminder's coming up. And then we have kind of this contract. Does it expire, the initial term, and does it automatically renew? So if it expires, we say, you know, time interval, you know, it's going to be 1 year. So I'll just put 1 year. And does it renew? Put in yes. And then we have some more renewal options. So, you know, it automatically renews in perpetuity. So it's just going to keep renewing
Every year until you stop it. Which there are contracts that are like that.
Oh, yeah.
So if there's a renewal amount, we can say, you know, the non-renewal option, you have to set in 30 days before the contract ends. And then that is what's used for that 30, 60, 90 will be based off of this 30 days beforehand. And the contract renewal amount is just going to be an annual renewal, so 1 year. And then we just need to upload a contract. So I just need some Word doc here. They had this, let's do a health building permit workflow. And so they just had this as a Word document because they wanted it to be editable, so they could change things as they were going. And then I'm going to submit. So once the submission goes through, this kicks off the workflow in the back end. And the first thing that should happen is email notification should be sent out.
To you.
Yeah, to me. So we'll just wait a second for those emails to go through.
There it is.
There we go.
So when Mark submitted this, what would happen in the town of Monroe is the department head submits it, and the way it's set up in Monroe is they wanted it to go from the department head to the first selectman. The first selectman's office reviews it, makes sure it's good. They then approve, well, not approve it, but approve this step, and then send that contract to the town attorney. The town attorney then reviews it, either approves it or denies it, has the ability to upload a red line version back, and if he denies it, it goes back to the original department head with, it's been denied by the legal counsel, here's a red line version, send that back, and then you can start that process all over again without having to restart the whole thing. There's a link that comes to the department head saying, once you have the new contract, click this link and you can basically start from where you let off.
Yeah, so this is just kind of looking at one of those approval steps. So this is the first step to the first selectman. It's the same form. You can make changes if you want to. Sometimes the town wanted fields to be editable, sometimes they didn't. AIS can kind of customize it based on the town's needs. And then at the bottom, we have our two options. So there's some additional fields that pop up. So they have a town attorney number. So let's put 1 there, and then we can refer to attorney or reject it. So I'll just do this first step just to kind of show you how it goes through. So then it goes into the system, and now I'm in Laserfiche. This is kind of look at the home page, all the different tasks and things that are going on in there. So you can access tasks directly in Laserfiche, or you can get it on the email. So one thing that this step does is it also sends out notifications. So this goes to the department head and to the first selectman. So hey, the first selectman reviewed it and sent it over to the town attorney, and it has some of the information in there. Just kind of customized email based on the information recorded in the process. And then it goes to the next step, which is now a town attorney review, which says, you know, here's the contract, open the task, and it goes through the same process. So as Matt said, it goes through the town attorney, back to the first selectman, then it sends out an email to the town council. There's no steps for the town council in it, it just sends them all the documents so they can see them all as PDFs. And then after it gets approved at the council meeting, the first selectman puts in the council number,
The resolution number and all that.
and then it goes in.
And then it goes to the final executable step. When they have the fully signed document, they upload the last final fully signed contract on both parties, and then that goes in as the last upload. And then that's kind of that's the authoritative version, is that last upload.
Yeah, and then everything gets stored in Laserfiche in the repository. So if I just go into the repository real quick, you can see the folder breakdown, all the different towns here. We have RiverCOG and Monroe. So if I go to Monroe, and this was an assessor contract. So if I go to assessor, contracts, we have a breakdown of where they are in the process. So this one was just submitted to the first selectman, broken down by year, and this is the test document I just did. So if I open that up and click on the document, you can see all the metadata fields on the right that are stored in there. So if something happens and you need to change the dates, you can go in and change the metadata and update it and save it, and that'll change the workflow on the back end. So you don't have to submit a new contract. If the terms change, you can go into the system and change it that way.
Is there any way of exporting that metadata fields? Or
Yeah,
Printing it.
Yes, you can run a report that will give you the title of the document, its folder path, and all the metadata. It's a metadata report you can run.
Yeah, Mark, if you want to click on the 3 ellipses under your name, you can go to generate report and then select metadata report, and it'll spit out whatever metadata fields you want. You can configure what you want it to say in the Excel document. You can do this on a single document, on folders in the repository, or on a custom search. So if you want to sort of design your own report, it's pretty easy to get out of the
if you want
system.
to do a report on all the contracts for the fiscal year.
Yep.
You
And
can
that's something that we actually
that's
set up
right.
with the town of Monroe. I think, what is it, monthly, Mark? There's a report that the first selectman gets of all the contracts that are expiring or that are gonna be up for expiration or up for renewal that month or within the next 90 days based on their thing. So that was something the first selectman wanted was to get that report on a month, I think it's monthly, right? Like first of the month?
Yeah, so that's the first of the month. And then we have other reports that go out to the town. So one of the other things that they just launched this past spring was a facility reservation form. So this is for the public to reserve different buildings in the town. And what gets sent out now weekly is a status report. Let's see if I got this morning's. Yep, so this is the report, didn't have anything in it. But basically this will say what the report is, what step it's on. So the first selectman knows, let's see if I look at last week's, knows where things are in the process. So they can go out and, oops. Follow up with, let's see, different departments. I don't have it right here. To see like where the status is. So if it'll show all the departments, say it's been approved in PD and Public Works, but it's still waiting, in Building Department to approve it. So then they can follow up individually with them. So this is another public-facing process here. So I'm just gonna put in my email for.
And so again, as you fill it out, Mark, as Zahir mentioned, part of the benefit of coming onto our system, as Zahir said, we're on the pro tier of licensing of 25 users. So all of these submissions, this is a public portal submission or a public form submission. These are unlimited. Where if you just did the 5 users, you'd be limited by, it's 1,000 a month still, which is a lot.
Right.
But here we never have to run into a problem. And then that's the other thing as we scale larger with, bringing in potentially RiverCOG municipalities. We're also doing some work with Norwalk Redevelopment Agency to do a viewer for them. We've had some discussions with RiverCOG too about coming onto this for their brownfield stuff. So as we build it out, we're never going to have to run into a place where we ran out of submissions or views for the month, which I thought was really important because if we're going to have this be a service for every town, we don't want to get to the 29th of a month and be like, oh, we've had 1,001 views. We can't look at anything for another 2 days. So that's one of the benefits of having that unlimited forms and views is that we never have to run into that issue.
Yeah, so this is a request form for the public to go out and request a certain facility. You type in what days you need access to it, how many people are coming, setup, takedown details. They have additional questions in here, like do you need access to a laptop, you have a sign, and these kick off different workflows. So if you say yes to a laptop, it'll notify the first selectman office that they need access to it. They can organize that. There's also an insurance requirement. So it says if you have one, you can upload it. If not, you can still submit the form and it will go through. And what this process does is kicks off a workflow to all of the departments that have to approve the facility use form. So at the same time, the departments all get the notification. So the first one, I believe, is just a first selectman's office. They go in and they just do a cursory overview, just say, yes, this is gonna work, or no, it's not. And then once they hit approve, so if I go down to the bottom, again, with all these approval steps, it kind of shows the entire form that's there. So if I hit approve here, the next step will be,
You have your concern.
So it has a default, a required field that I did not fill out, so I don't have any concerns. I'm gonna hit approve. So you can say you have concerns, write your notes and still approve it, just so everyone is aware of it.
Right.
But it doesn't stop the process. But once it goes to the first selectman, then it goes out to 6 other departments. And everyone is then, you can see all my different emails coming through.
Yeah.
So everyone gets the task at the same time, and they can go through and approve it. And the process waits until all
6 will approve
yeah, all
it.
the departments approve it.
And then, once they all approve it, does it get back sent to the applicant who?
So then it gets back to the first selectman, who
Yeah.
does one final approval, and then it sends out a email to the applicant with all the instructions.
Okay.
You've been approved. If one department, if HR decides they do need insurance, then they select they need insurance, and a whole different workflow kicks off. So if they didn't upload something and they require that they do upload it, then they can approve it pending the insurance, and it kicks off another step. So again, these things are different, sidetracks that we built once we kind of established it. So once they set it up, they went, oh, well, what if we need insurance in some instances and not others? So let's add this other step process to it.
Yeah, and I would say just for the folks at RiverCOG too, one of the nice things about this is like everything that we're showing here is fully customizable.
Mhm.
So those are the questions that were on there, the dependencies, the process it takes was fully based on what the town of Monroe does to their process. If yours is much simpler, you just need one person to say yes, it can be the same type of system with a simple approval, and that's the end of it. So I just want to make sure you don't have to build something as complex as this if your town doesn't have the processes that require that. So it's fully kind of customizable based on what you need. And even I will say, even with the contract management, that kind of started off as we need something to keep track of the contracts is how we started. So we built basically the form to upload the executed ones. And then once we did that, there was like, well, there is value in kind of being able to go through the whole process of getting a contract from start to finish. So let's start building that out. So we started with a very simple form just to upload executed contracts, and then it built into a much larger form, much larger process that was the whole approval process through the first selectman, attorney's office, and the town council. So it's one of those things where it's kind of nice because you can start simple and then build off of that if it's something that you just want to kind of get up and running, and then have the ability to add to it or customize it once it's up. So it's really flexible system, which we've appreciated, and so is all of our towns, that they don't have to know exactly what they're doing from the beginning. They can kind of start it and then see how it goes, and then make changes to it once it's up and running.
So let's say you have this request for like a room reservation, and it has to be approved by all these different people. Is there any way of determining where it is in the workflow?
Yeah.
And like where the holdup
You
is?
can see, and that's the other thing
Yeah.
that the town kind of wanted, both with the building permit process and with the contract process, was and for the reservations, really figuring out who hasn't done what they were supposed to do.
Right.
And so by having it go to different users, either named users or participant users, who can both participate in this process, you can say, okay, it's been done by everyone but HR. So you can go knock on HR and say, you haven't approved this one, we have 2 weeks, so get it. So there's ways to track that, either with reports or even just going into the system, because you can see, as an administrator, you can see kind of who's running.
And even like for like room reservations, you could also probably create at the end of the whole process some sort of Outlook invite or something.
So this process does send an Outlook invite at the end.
Oh, that's great.
So it sends that and adds it to a calendar directly. So all the department heads that approved it get that as well.
Yeah.
So they get a calendar invite with all of the information that was approved in the process.
Excellent. Yeah.
And then there are different like report functionality things that come in here. So you can say, work in progress. See who has the most tasks. So if I select, I'll just select trade permit right now, because just to show that real fast. So if I select the trade permit form, we use the latest version and apply there. You can see we have 91 instances that are currently in progress. And we have some of these different ones. Some are waiting for, 12 instances are waiting for town review and zoning and wetland. 9 are waiting for applicant payment, and 69 have been approved.
Okay.
And then you can click on the instances here, and it'll bring up a table with the information that is customizable here, so you can change which columns are displayed. But you can see where in the step it is, who it's been assigned to. So if I scroll over, you can see somewhere in the building department, somewhere the fire marshal, some have multiple. So there's just different ways to go in and kind of see the status of the different trade permits. One thing, a few other things I just want to touch on real quick. So with the trade permit, one of the initial issues the town wanted to address was the finance and the reporting of the form. So every month, finance gets a report which spits out all of the different permits that have been paid for, and it breaks down the fees. So the applicants pay one fee, and it's broken down by department, and finance gets a report based on that. We also built this custom report request, so anybody can go in and look at, I want to see all of the trade permits that have been approved from September until now. And if I just hit submit, it'll send me an email with a chart in it that'll break down all of the payments. Sometimes those take a little while to generate. So while that is doing that, I just wanted to also touch on real quick that while AIS does build most of these applications, you are able to go in, if you start to understand Laserfish, and build forms yourself. So I put together some very simple forms in here. So this is just a GIS data request form. So basically anybody who has a request for GIS services can go in here on our website, just type in some basic information and send in a project description. And what will happen is it'll send an email to Matt and myself saying, hey, here's a request with a PDF attached, and then it all gets saved in the repository as well.
Okay.
So just a way to kind of store information.
So you get a request in for a map for one of your towns.
Yeah, so it's usually public, I mean, honestly, a lot of it, as you know, comes into us from like vendors or real estate people or something looking for JS data.
Right.
So it's like, hey, can we get all the parcels for town X? But we always used to get them we had a little submission on our previous website that I don't even know where it went, but we wanted something to kind of store them more permanently, make sure we had them all, knew what we got. And then as Mark said, Mark and I both get an email when there's a submittal there's a submittal, here's a PDF of that form. Basically, it's just a PDF of the form as it's filled out, asking what we want, and we follow up with it. So it's pretty simple. Again, that one's very simple. There's no process in the back end. It's just the public fills it out, submits it, Mark and I get it, and then we go forward with it.
But that also keeps a record of how many requests you have.
It does, yep. So it keeps it, and then the way it stores them, it puts the RiverCOG GIS request folder. So they're all right there listed by year and by month. So there you can go back and see how many requests you got in March of 2022 if you want or something.
That's excellent.
We do have about 15 minutes left. I did want to let Dylan share his screen so that he can show the rest of the towns how we do that customization work, if that's okay. We'll let him do just run through and show how we can start from scratch and basically build out a very simple or simple or complicated process.
All right, so
Dylan?
yeah, make Dylan co-host.
Alrighty, Dylan, take it away.
All right. So I'm here in Laserfish, and this is more on the developer side, where I can actually manage and design my processes. I can obviously start something from scratch, and sometimes we do need to do that if you're really building something that we've never seen before. But oftentimes I have something I can go off of. So I'm going to click New Process, and I'm going to go to the Solution Templates. And as Mark mentioned earlier, you can build your own processes. In this particular case, as you can see, there's 149 pre-built templates for you already in the system. You're welcome to go search through any of these. I'm going to filter by government and just go through some of the government ones like box retrieval, care facilities survey, facilities work request, new users, process changes, medical examiners, federal assistance programs, even building permits now. So if you want to go bring one of these into the system, it is insanely easy to do. You click on the process, you get a bit of a preview of what the process is going to look like in the system, the full flow, each of the steps, things like that. Now, when you do go to actually upload this, it is going to ask you for some extra information, like what users do you want to assign these tasks to? Because the system isn't going to know which particular users should be in which particular steps, but everything else is actually configured, the conditional statements, the triggers, even a bunch of the forms. And you can even get a preview of what the forms will look like here. So you can see what some of the, basic information that Laserfish thinks could be really, really useful already there. Now you can download this if you want to think on it, you just want to have a copy locally. You can also just hit import process to just put it into Laserfiche right away. So I'm just going to click that. And it is going to walk me through the next steps. So are there any users that it specifically called out that I may need to replace? Any forms that may have an issue bringing over with like specific images on them, or specific things that like are referenced from the repository in the other system where this is being brought over from. What workflows do I want this to use? You can upload those as well. The system will do its best to merge everything for me, so I'm just going to be able to leave that as is. Are there any custom rules I want to set? What repository do I want this saving the data to? Now, we only use one repository. I believe RiverCOG also uses one and uses security to separate everything for the individual towns.
Yep.
So this will be pre-filled in just like I have here, and you're not going to need to do anything. And then set a time zone and work schedule. I have a standard 9 to 5 Monday through Friday in the Eastern time set up. If you've got multiple towns and things like that in different areas, they can set up their own time zones as well, and you can split things out that way as well. Each user can have their own time zone too, so we have one user internal to our company who is on a very different time zone than everyone else, and they're able to set that to see everything in their own time zone as well.
And Dylan, when you say time zone, like let's say we have different towns that have different hours of operation, or would you just set different each user would have different hours of operation potentially, or?
I'm gonna hit the upload button just so this does this, and then I'm actually gonna hop over and I'll show you what I'm talking about with that.
Because like we're all going to be in the we're all going to be using Eastern Standard Time, at least here.
Yep. So what you can do here is I can go to my settings and I can create, and you can see I can create custom work schedules, custom holidays, and I can set these holidays to only apply to specific forms and specific work schedules. So if you have one town that honors Juneteenth, for instance, but another one that doesn't, as that's still a relatively new holiday, although I think that's federal now, so that may not be a great example. But I think you get the point. You can set these.
But Old Lyme is closed on Friday afternoons. The town of Old Lyme.
Yep.
Isn't,
So you can have their work schedule be and let me just make a new work schedule here so you can see what I'm talking about. You can see I can set each individual day. I can check these days.
Right.
You know, so Friday, let's say they end at noon instead.
Yeah.
So and let's say maybe they have Saturday hours from like, 9 to 1 or something like that. You can set whatever work schedules you want. You can customize, obviously, the time zone as well. I'm just going to do Eastern here. And you can add in specific holidays for a specific town as well. So yet again, some holidays that some places recognize versus others, you can have these be assigned to each different process and for each different town. That is one thing you're going to notice with Laserfiche. It is incredibly customizable. It does mean that you do have to go through everything and you do have to put in a lot of the settings, but it does mean that if you have specific things like one town that ends on half days every Friday, you can do that pretty easily. So previously I clicked upload to upload my process here. We can see the full process here. We see it goes to a review by a clerk, and then it spits out into, building zone inspection, public works, fire department. Well, let's say there is a fourth group that I want to add to this, or let's say there's after the clerk, there's another review process that needs to happen. Adding additional tasks or even removing tasks is as easy as just dragging and dropping the individual task in here. I can then double click it and I can go about setting custom emails, task distribution rules, forms, reminder settings, all of that stuff just on a double click. You can see it's all done via sort of this drag and drop interface. You don't need a huge software engineering background to do this. There are options for the software engineers with custom code if you really want to go that route, but we find most of the time we don't need it. For some of the stuff like custom payment gateways and things like that, you may want to do it just to help validate payments and things like that. But for the most part, you'll be okay with just simple drag and drop. You can also go into the individual permits and stuff like that, the individual applications here, and you can view what the actual forms are going to look like. So you can see how these forms look like here. And it is really easy to go customize. You want to add in, we've got name, phone, email, mailing address, things like that. let's say we want to add in, you know, an additional line here for something. I can just drag and drop these fields in here. You can even drag and drop them next to each other, so you don't have to worry about any sort of formatting or anything like that. Also, it wasn't shown previously, but if I click, sorry, I'm just gonna reload the page. Oh, I picked a process that needs a little bit of work done to it because they're setting stuff up with lot and building height. I'm not going to worry about the particular rules for that right now, but I'm going to click preview and just show you some of the other things that forms can do. So one of the great things about Laserfish forms that I'm not sure was covered before is you have all of these conditional statements. So here you have one mailing address, but if you say that the mailing address isn't the same as the property one, you'll notice additional fields pop up. Now, we don't just have to do that with fields. We can do that with entire pages or entire secondary forms as well. So the whole, if you filled out this small section, you know, please fill out this other section. Or if you checked this box here, please fill out this additional form. We guide the users through all of that. So your users don't have to worry about any of that stuff. And similarly, the theme here is very bare bones. If we want to spice up this theme, let's say we have a particular town here that might end up appreciating a bit of a different theme. I went and built Cromwell's theme here already, so I'm just going to click Save here. And when I go to preview this, and of course, I didn't check to make sure that the background that I pulled was quite so so perfect for this. But I did pull this straight from their site. So this is actually what they use on their website. This is how their website looks.
Yeah, no, this is like the PGA golf course in town. So yeah, it's good.
Yep. So it can use all of the same assets that you likely are already using for a lot of their websites. You may want to add in a little bit of custom code and stuff like that to, or maybe you just want to go in here to the themes, go to styles, and maybe for the background, maybe I just wanted to add in some custom tiling to it, so that it actually will, or I need to do the tiling up here, so that it'll actually, you know, repeat itself. So now when I click save and I upload this, or I go to preview this, we'll notice, yeah, now it's tiling. It's not the greatest. You could do stuff to extend it as well and things like that. Yet again, you don't need coding information to do these full themes. All of this is done through the pre-built settings here. So obviously, a lot of the customization is really easy to do. You have a lot of customization on the user account sides as well. If you need them to see certain things, hide certain things, groups need to have more access. As Mark mentioned earlier, scheduled reports and things like that can be really nice. We can view ad hoc reports as well here on individual actual processes. So if you want to view reports on any particular process that is in the works, something where you want to say, hey, this due date, how often does this get exceeded? We can use some monitoring to say, hey, yeah, when you get more than 100 of these tasks in a week, a few of them always end up overdue. So we can do overdue task prediction and send alerts and emails to dedicate more resources to stuff. We have a lot of additional tools available, and I can really talk about it for a long time. But I want to leave you a couple minutes for questions. Do you have any questions?
And for everyone online, I don't think there's that many. If you want to either do the raise hand icon or just speak up. Speak up.
And I would say too, just from MetroCOG's perspective, and I'm sure Zahir would agree, if any towns after kind of digesting this a little bit have specific questions or would like a specific presentation either from us on what we've done on the COG side of things or us with AIS to kind of figure out how, you know, answer some of your specific questions to your municipality, we're more than happy to work through Sam and his staff here and set those up as needed as well. So it's, you know, this isn't the last chance here. If anything, this is the first chance to kind of see some of this stuff. But if there's anything that we can do on a municipality specific request or need, we're happy to make that happen too.
Well, what I like about this is that if your town wants to do it, another town probably already has potentially. And so you have a template that you can now work off of from some other town.
And even if someone hasn't done it, you build it once, and then you can use, as Dylan showed, there's a lot of pre-built templates in there that, and they keep, and I will say, and Dylan didn't mention this, they keep adding more of those, as the system continues to be built out and new customized processes are built, those get added into that pre-built templates, so there's more now than there was when we first started using the cloud version of Laserfish. And my guess is those continue to get, that repository gets larger and larger. But yeah, once someone builds it once on this system, where everyone would have the ability to kind of pull it into their specific town and use that same process with obviously some small tweaks to the users and the approval processes and whatever happens. But you won't have to build it from scratch ever really once it's built once, which is great.
So I saw that you have, so going back to the users, so you have, let's say you have one user in the town, but then you also might have people who are responsible under that user license. Or no, so there was 2 levels of license, right?
Yeah, there's the full user, that's the $950 a year, that's what comes with the storage, that's the 100 gig storage comes with each one of those users. And then the participant license is for someone that's not going to, and Zahir, jump in here whenever you want. The participant license is really for someone that can participate in any of the processes, make any approvals, but can't upload things directly or edit things directly in the repository.
Okay, and so would department heads be participants?
So normally, but in Monroe, the department heads are all named users.
Okay.
Because they need the ability to put things in there, upload certain things. But like someone like, and it depends on how the department's set up, depends on how the town's set up. Someone like a department admin might only need to be a participant. They just need to be able to see stuff in the repository that's not necessarily publicly available, but isn't hid behind permission. So there's ways to do it. I mean, I think in most towns, you're gonna, and as Zahir said, I think you'd want at least one named full user for each town to have that storage and kind of have the access.
Yeah.
And then depending on what you're doing, we can kind of work on and figure out with that town what other licenses are going to be necessary for the processes they're trying to run with this.
Yeah, at least one full user per town, and then we can usually use participants for people that are doing approvals as part of that process.
Yeah, and like with most things in Laserfish, don't feel like you're stuck into a decision. If you get licenses and you get a bunch of participants and then realize you actually needed full licenses for more people in that town, we can always change the license type on the users. You're not like locked in. We can't, it's not like, oh, we're never going to be able to change this user. We're sorry. It's, we can just change their license type. And
yeah, you can upgrade the licenses.
Yeah.
Are there any data, is there any data that's collected that can be used for management purposes to see how efficient your staff are processing applications? How long is it taking?
Yes, all of that reporting is available. Laserfish has advanced reporting tools that will actually show you if you have a bottleneck in your process. So there's things like heat maps. So in that contracting process, for example, if it ends up that the attorney is the phase that's taking the longest, that might make sense because they're reviewing the contract, they're redlining it, but you could find unexpected bottlenecks, and the Laserfish reporting will kind of show you which tasks are taking the longest, which users maybe have heaviest workload, where there are potential bottlenecks in the process.
And so, for example, you need, for an application, you need the health department, you need fire marshal, you need building inspector. They could all be reviewing in parallel the same application and then doing their sign-offs as part of the workflow.
Yeah, so Mark can talk about what we do with Monroe. So we kind of have an initial review with everyone all together, and then it goes stepwise through each.
Okay.
Because this was something we worked with the town on, and it really came from them.
So like the facility reservation, everybody looks at the same time, approves it, and then it all gets collected and goes to the first selectman.
Yep.
The trade permit goes through a linear process. Each department starts with, health, goes to wetlands, zoning, building. For a building permit, what it does is does a little combo of both. The initial review, everyone gets an email saying, hey, this permit's come in, take a quick look, see if there's any major issues. And then once everybody says yes, then it goes through the linear process for the full review. And that's just kind of a catch-all saying, like, if something in building is going to kind of throw this whole thing back, let's not have each department review it first. So everyone gets one quick pass at it in parallel, and then it goes.
And the reasoning there was, there was concerns from the applicant side of getting like multiple rejections over and over and over again. So as Mark said, they do the kind of initial group review. Everyone approves it at their level to say, yeah, in theory, this seems fine. We haven't done a full review, but then it goes linearly. So if it gets the first 2 steps and then the third step is let's say in wetlands, and they say, well, no, you're not far enough from the setback, it goes back to the applicant, and then it'll start back at step 1 again. Or depending on how much change, it might go right back to the wetlands. So there's a lot of dependencies built in there.
The town customized it, so if someone has an issue, say if, wetlands has an issue, they want a new submission, they can select which departments need to review the form again. So it doesn't have to go all the way back.
So if the last step said no, it doesn't necessarily have to go all the way back through if the change is gonna only affect that one last department.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's all those little small changes and minor tweaks and intricacies that kind of.
Because we're also trying to maximize everyone's time and not just have them review and approve something that didn't really change from their specific department perspective.
Right. And I was just like thinking, like, if coming from the perspective of first selectman, if you're seeing that applications are getting stuck at like the farm marshal
All the time.
and you can see it in this process, the building permit, the flow chart, you have hard data now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
Well, that was something that the town and row was looking for too, because their permit process was taking longer than they had wanted to. And that was one of the things they liked out of this, because everyone's working off of a user account, everything tracks back to that account, so you can track and run reports based on who's doing that.
Yeah, that's great. All right, thank you, Jim. It looks like people are starting to, any last questions before we go? And I'm curious, Angus, is that actually you, Angus? I assume it is. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
All right, yeah.
Sorry. Carol was trying. I was trying to get Carol here, but she wasn't able to come to listen.
But what I'm thinking is let's talk about price and money again before people go. We do have money from the regional services grant for projects this year, and one of our projects is this, and I'm strongly considering following the RiverCOG model of using regional services grant money to pre-fund licenses and also development time for the towns who want to participate, and to kickstart this in your town. It's hard to get something new off the ground and ask for money for something that no one's ever seen before. So I think the idea would be something very similar to RiverCOG, where we pre-fund it with RSG, and then for the towns who see value, who are actually using it, they'll eventually take over the cost eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we did. So we had an initial board resolution when we entered into this program, 2019, I think, 2019. A board resolution that talked about kind of what we were doing, approved by the board to enter into the contract with not really enter, we already had a contract with them, so it was really just supplemental contract from our existing one with Zahir and his folks.
Yeah.
And then with some language in there that there would be, at such point in time, we didn't put a time on it, but at such point in time that, a cost share would be worked out between municipalities still utilizing the system and RiverCOG. And we use it for our own internal stuff, so there's a part of the licenses that we all have one internally because we use it for, as Mark said, some of the GIS stuff, we're doing some contract tracking with it, so we're using it internally, not just our towns.
That's right. Yeah, and that would be the proposal to the board, would be to fund this with our with a portion of our RSG grant. So any other questions before we go? All right. Well, I thank everyone for showing up, and we will we'll be in touch. Kevin will do follow up, and I think let's please, if you're interested and you have more questions, reach out to me or Kevin. We'll get you in touch with either RiverCOG or AIS to get you the right answers. But I'm excited about this. I think this will help our towns immeasurably, particularly our smaller towns who just don't have the staff to be able to implement something like this. So,
Thank you all for your time today. Let us know if you have any additional questions.
Thanks, Zahir.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Have a great day.